in our ongoing countdown to how long it takes until we will see Massimo return. All of a sudden, Mancini turns up. Who'd have guessed it? Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name's Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friends Adam and Andrea. Andrea, decked out in your Fiorentina stuff this week. How we doing, man?
Absolutely buzzing. I had to get it all out. I had to enjoy the moment. Yeah, I had to get it all out. Mind you, I've got shin pads on as well, gone all out. Yeah, great. And to top it off, Beans is actually good for you. Fajoli, man of the match. Can't beat it. What a
Incredible.
name.
Mr. Beans does it again. Adam, how you doing, man?
Yeah, very good, despite the weekend of watching Wickham lose at the hands of Hollywood FC, as everyone's calling them. No Deadpool at Adams Park, I'm afraid. So bittersweet afternoon, it's fair to say. But nonetheless, how are things in Milan, Rory?
Yeah, I'm all right. You might hear my voice sounds a little bit different. There's some mad illness going around Milan at the moment, and the entire city is coughing. I thought I'd avoided it, but no. So if I do cough or you hear me, ill in the background, I apologise in advance. I'm going to have my finger quickly hovered over the mute button in case. But yeah, no, not too bad. Obviously, Arsenal won, so the world is good again. And there was lots of interesting games in Serie A this week. I think quite a few goals, plenty of score lines, and a few upsets as well. But before we get to the football, we need to talk about the big moment of the weekend. And Adam, I need to ask you a question. How many languages can you argue in? You can argue in English. Can you argue in Polish?
I could argue in Polish.
You could argue in Polish?
I'd probably be a bit pigeon-esque when it comes to maybe a bit of Italian, bit of Spanish from the odd word here and there. But bastardo seems to be a common one that I could get away with, right?
That's like my Italian and Spanish. Don't worry, Andrea. How many languages are you arguing in?
To be honest, I'd say, yeah, Italian, Spanish. I think Spanish is my best one, to be fair.
Oof.
Learned it from the missus, to be fair. So, yeah, so lots of arguments there, I guess. But no, I'd say that. But yeah, I think obviously you've got the dialects as well. So I think in Italian it's never ending.
Well, it looks like we could all compete. Well, you two could compete. I could do English and a bit of Italian. That's it. We could all compete with Rino Gattuso, who this week, now it was against Josko Jelavic. What was his name? The Croatian guy. I did have his name written down. In the post-match, Gattuso wandered straight into the studio. Now, his team are on a bit of a run. It's not going well, as is often the case when Rino's in charge of a team. And rather than even addressing anyone else in the room, he just directly starts arguing with the pundit. Like, Adam, how on brand was this for Rino, and how much did you enjoy it?
In terms of enjoyment, entertainment value, it was 10 out of 10. The only thing I would say that was missing was maybe Glaswegian from his dialects that he was arguing with the presenter. But yeah, very much on brand with his kind of style of giving his summary thoughts, right? We've been accustomed to his spell in Greece where he gives sometimes shit, sometimes good analogy. And yeah, I was expecting a bit more of that, to be fair. But yeah, it was a fantastic watch. It was one for the ages, that's for sure.
It really went on for a very long time. Like, Andrea, are we ever going to be able to take him seriously as a manager? I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen.
I don't know. But to be honest, at the same time, I was quite impressed because he spoke English, Italian, Spanish, and through some Calabrese, which I was like, all right, got to learn that now. And to be fair, I don't know, I can't really say because I could understand the languages, but it felt like no matter what language you spoke, you could understand what you were saying, even if you didn't know the language.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it
1,000%.
really impressive. That's what I'm like, that's impressive. So I'm giving it plaudits for that. The fact that he can make it clear for everyone and stand out, but also, promote the languages. Great. Phenomenal.
He's clearly a very effective communicator. Very effective communicator. Yeah, no, I was listening. I was like, oh, that's Italian. Oh, that's Spanish. Oh, that's English. Oh, shit. I understood all of it. Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, it was Josko, not Jelavic, who used to play for Everton. Josko Jelicic. I'm not sure. I think he played mainly in Croatia, but I did like the line where Gattuso was like, what the fuck did you win in your career? I can't remember what language he said that in, but that was definitely the gist of what he said. That was obviously the story of the weekend, but we're leaving Italy and going to a country that we've not actually been to before. And we're heading to Bulgaria. Now, this is my favourite story of the weekend. It's absolutely incredible. A game between Arda and Levski they had a 1 minute silence before the game for the death of a player, Petko Ganchev. They then had to apologise halfway through the game because it turns out that Ganchev is in fact not dead. Their statement as well was unbelievable. It just finished the statement with, we wish Petko many more years of celebrating all of Arda's many triumphs. And it was just, how the hell you come up with that wording? Adam, I think we've seen a few gaffes with, national anthems, but I don't think, apart from mascot's minute silence, we've not really seen a mess up this big with a minute silence before. It's just incredible, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Another story for the ages. It feels like a witness protection plan that has just gone really badly wrong, hasn't it? But maybe it was just they realised it was the wrong person that had to go in witness protection. Maybe that's what happened, and they realised halfway through the match that they had to make a statement to make sure that pesky gang weren't going for the wrong person, right?
Yeah, him and his family have had to do a midnight runner now. They're all like, I've been telling people I've been dead for 6 months. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Love that story. It's been doing the rounds everywhere. And we'll be trying. If there are any more news story coming out of that, we will keep you up to date, much like Pulley. But guys, we are going to absolutely focus now on Serie A. We're going to talk about the serious football. And we're going to start, of course, talking with the huge game at the top as Inter win in Bergamo, get the better of a very hot-headed Ladeo. We'll be picking through that one. Fiorentina piling the misery on at Juve. Andrea, we're going to let you talk for as long as you like, pretty much, about that game. And then we'll be talking about maybe the shock of the weekend, actually, as Bologna beat Lazio 5-0. Unbelievable scenes there. Our man Baroni having to apologise in the stands afterwards. And then, of course, we'll be looking through all the rest of the Serie A action and previewing the Nations League action featuring the Azzurri this week. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break. We'll see you on the other side. Bentornati. It's time to discuss all of the calcio action in Serie A this weekend, starting down, up, kind of in Bergamo. Atalanta 0, Inter 2. Absolutely huge win for the Nerazzurri here. I think my overriding feeling about this was every time Atalanta have had the opportunity to take advantage, every time they've had the opportunity to make that move and make the charge, they've just not quite been able to do it. Whether it's been not scoring goals, not beating teams that they should have beaten. But Adam, I'm going to start with you. This one felt like they just especially towards the end, they completely lost their heads. But from the beginning of the game, I'm not sure Gasp got the selection right. I think it was a brave move to choose to start Pasalic and not De Ketelaere. Now, I know hindsight is 2020, but I felt like even when De Ketelaere came on, he caused a few more problems, a bit more unpredictable than Pasalic. Like, do you feel like this is Gasparini, but also the players they didn't really seem on it at all?
I felt first half was a bit more tenser than, say, the second half. Because whilst Inter had their moments, they really couldn't take the most of it. And there was that header from Pasalic that had to force a save out of Summer. So I felt like maybe Gasparini wasn't far off. But you're right to allude to the fact that maybe the players weren't on it in that respect. I didn't feel there was enough intensity that was offered from the squad of players. And actually, when you come into reflection now of like Atalanta at home, they haven't had a great start to 2025. Of the 7 games that they've played at home, they've really struggled to win any of them at this moment in time. And don't forget the teams that they've played so far in most recent times. We're talking about the likes of Venezia, Calgary, for example, Torino, where they all earn draws against those teams. So I think the fundamental issue seems to be psychologically at home, where they're struggling for form. And you could see that kind of play out in terms of this match as well, because whilst we kind of allude to the fact that Inter didn't really make the most of the opportunities, they did create the better kind of opportunities in this match. And Atalanta, there's something about this run that feels like they've got the potential to maybe only just hang on to 4th place as it currently stands, because it feels like, for as much as we've been bigging them up as being outsiders to this Scudetto race, it feels like with the form of Bologna, which we'll allude to later, it feels like they could be in pole position to actually get 3rd position right now. And I think none of us had that on our bingo card. So yeah, I think Atalanta and Gasparini in particular will be gutted about the way that this game really played out. And maybe Gasparini didn't get the right characters for this particular game.
I just feel like there wasn't enough creativity up front in order to cause into any problems. It was far too easy for them to defend. It was all pretty much in front of them. I think Acerbi had an incredible game. The whole back line, like in general, they were amazing. But I feel like Atalanta really played into their hands, weren't able to get around them, but didn't have that unpredictability. And I know De Ketelaere hasn't been in great form. He's not scored in what feels like forever. I have him in Fantacalcio. I'm aware of it. But I think he gives that little bit when he comes on. He does that little jink. He does a little he's just a little bit more unpredictability, and maybe he might be out to. He seemed like he had a point to prove against Inter when he came on. Ex Milan stuff like that. I think maybe starting him and having Pasalic come on could have been a better move. But Andrea, why do you think the attack didn't really cause any issues for Inter? Is it because Inter defensively are pretty solid and have been, or was it just also there was just a bit of a spark missing?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a spark, like you alluded to about De Ketelaere not starting. I think they're just missing an extra player in that attacking third. But I also think it's again a mentality thing that they seem to lack in terms of challenging for this area. Like they've had chances to catch up and they've missed out. This is another opportunity where Napoli drew and they could have caught up and beat Inter as well simultaneously and still messed up. And again, it's their 8th loss in a row against Inter in last 8 meetings, which says a lot as well. So it's quite a big barrier they've got to kind of overcome as well in terms of that mental block of actually starting to win these big games when they come as well. So I think that has played a part as well. I just also felt like they just, again, when in these type of games, we saw it when they played Napoli at home, when they had these big games, they're always quite frantic in the final third as well, where they somehow disappeared from their natural essence of playing, and they almost feel like they need to win, and it's kind of like now or never kind of attitude. And it's just kind of needing it to calm down a bit and try and, focus on the way they play, because they can play really well. But at the same time, I think the mental side of things, and as we saw near the end of the game, which we'll come to later, is the fact that they lost it completely at the end. And I think that just symbolizes a lot of factors, not only personnel wise in terms of tactics and player selections, but also the mentality side of things as well, and the pressure of trying to win this game at home, knowing what it could mean as well, and once again falling short. And I think that's a real, unfortunately, as much as we appreciate and like Atalanta, it's the point we have to really criticize, because it's not the first time; it's now the third or fourth time this has happened. And again, if we're really going to consider them title challengers, they've really got to change this type of style of games around. Otherwise, it's going to fall flat again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for these bigger games, you have to change your approach. You have to think about how to take on the opponent specifically that you're going against when you know that it's coming down to fine margins. And you could see the players at the end, like I think there was shots of Lookman and Retegui on the bench after they came off, and they both just looked heartbroken. Like you could see on their face, they were like, "This was our chance, and we've kind of fucked it now." But that was almost definitely fucked when Ederson completely lost his mind. Now, I think I can understand why he's reacted, because I don't think it's a foul. I don't think there's a foul there. I think like he's waiting for the foul, he's expecting the foul, but it doesn't really come. You see it given, so I can understand why he thinks that maybe there's something there. But for him to then complain and then sarcastically clap, and then Darun tries to tell him to fuck off, and he's still not going away. Like, Adam, that's the moment where the whole thing just collapsed. Right? Ederson is meant to be one of the more experienced players. He's 25 years old now. He's a leader in that team. You could see Darun was like disgusted and angry with him. Like, it was a huge moment.
Yeah, I think that was the moment where it killed off any chance of getting back into this game. I think also it's probably good to allude to the fact that David Massa, who was the referee, didn't really have a good control of the game overall. I didn't think he was necessarily giving the right things. And I think he set the tone for this kind of standard of refereeing where the signs were there. Ederson should have just been wiser and just got on with it personally. I know it's easier said than done, but when things go against you, you just got to mentally block it out and have a little moan to yourself about the whole situation. But yeah, he just continued, and you're just giving the referee an excuse essentially to just send you off, and that's what happened. But I think obviously you saw it even play out to Gianpiero Gasparini as well, getting sent off after the second goal as well. It was like, what's he trying to do. I get he's frustrated, but ultimately he hasn't been good enough on the day. That's the whole thing. And Gasperini has these kind of outbursts sometimes, and it's unnecessary. I don't know what it achieves in the grand scheme of things. So apart from look passionate on the sidelines, that's the only thing that he can get credit for.
Well, I think there's a fair few times this season he's lost his head. We all know his comments post the Champions League towards Lookman. Like, Andrea, I know that, like, look, if Gasperini somehow still or had managed to lead them to the Scudetto, there would have been about 20 statues of him in Bergamo. But it does kind of feel now like it's got all the makings of this is the last season. It feels like things are running out a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like it feels like running out of steam. But I think these isolated incidents we're seeing now with the Lookman situation, and obviously him getting sent off in this game as well, it just seems to be like he's starting to like lose that kind of like control which he's had over the years at Atalanta and how they've played and how they've won games and the manner, etc. So yeah, I think it could be, and I'm presume with all this going on, there must be tensions going behind the scenes because on the flip side, on the club's sake, it doesn't look good. It doesn't bode well. So it's whether they not wanting to appreciate that going forward in future years. So pretty cool. And again, he's in the latter stages of his managerial career as well. So he might look to, he's gone as far as he's gone. Maybe perhaps he might just turn around and be like, "We've got the Europa League. I didn't get quite over the line with the title, but it might just be that it's he's hit the last kind of stride of his career at Atalanta, and he'll still go out as one of the best managers they've ever had. So, and that's no easy feat. So he's done really well in that sense.
No, absolutely. I do kind of feel like he thinks he might have one last big move in him. Like, obviously, it didn't go wrong. It didn't go right at all at Inter. But maybe he's looking at that Roma job and being like, am I going to get that one last role? That, not being disrespectful to Atalanta, but one of the giants of Italian football, right? Like, am I going to get a chance there? It'll be interesting to see, but it just feels like it's all kind of winding down. I think the second he made those comments about Lookman, I was like, yeah, you might be finished, man. Because Lookman, they're going to want to keep him more than you at this rate. But Adam, we've not even talked about Inter yet. In the first half, we kind of said it was close, but Thuram should have easily put Inter 1-0 ahead, if not 2, where there was all those mad chances just before half-time as well. Like, Inter definitely had the better part of the game, the better attacks. The attack kind of clicked more towards the end, but there's still not quite that link between Thuram and Lautaro. It's still not quite working. They're still not quite able to kill games off early. But like, that could have been a problem in another game, right?
Yeah, I think, it's still a massive opportunity for Inter going forward, that they need to readdress that kind of clinical edge up top because they've got some really tough games coming up. They've got Bayern Munich in the Champions League, for example. They've got Milan in the Coppa Italia. They've got, obviously, the league campaign as well. It's going to be quite tough on this team, given the amount of injuries they're still seemingly picking up. Denzel Dumfries also getting, maybe, hopefully, for their sake, he's actually going to be okay. I think he's detected it quite early, but again, it's another muscular injury. What I would say, though, is Lautaro did seem a lot sharper in this particular match. He seemed to have a little bit more of that confidence and, that direction in front of goal. There was that goal that was ruled off in the second half where I think Jim City gets away with it personally. I think he was very fortunate that we had David Massa who gave it as a foul. But again, I get the feeling with Lautaro, he's starting to be his more buoyant kind of self in front of the goal now. And you're right to allude to Marcus Thuram. I think we haven't necessarily seen the best of him. I don't think we've seen the best of him this season. Whether it kicks in, hopefully it will. But I, in one sense, though, Roy, I will say I feel for him in that situation, but he should be tucking that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just felt like he did everything right, and you're just like, okay, and it's unlucky because maybe you could chip the keeper, but it's actually finished really well at the far post. It's just when when things aren't going your way, they're not going your way, right? But you're right with the Lautaro goal. I thought was a really confident finish. It was calm. It was like absolutely rifled past the keeper. Like there was no way that wasn't going exactly where he wanted it to. So I think it was a big moment for him to take that like kind of leadership again within the team and be like, right, I'm killing this game off now, like done. Yeah. The first goal was a bit of a weird one because obviously there was some issue in the crowd, and we hope that fan is okay. I still don't know what happened there at all. No. There was like a really long pause, and then Inter just scored straight away. And I was like, obviously without sounding bad about the fan, I was like, I really hope that moment doesn't settle the game because it's just a bit of a weird goal. It was like, obviously Atalanta fell asleep a bit, just did not react. But Augusto, Andrea, he's popped up with a few big goals, this guy. He does he comes on and he just seemed to get the odd goal when it matters. And it was obviously it was a free header, but it was a very well-timed run. And he's one of these players that's just like an able deputy to come in, right?
Yeah, it was a good goal and a good moment. But I mean, he gets subbed on every game, so he has to fulfill it at some point, I guess. He's the natural sub for DeMarco every 70th minute, no matter what. So yeah, but nice to see him score. But yeah, to be honest though, he has been really crucial in the last few moments. But again, just shows again into squad they do have the quality. They just need to use it more, and not rely on the same players because in the end they get tired and fatigue and stuff. So, but yeah, it's good to see, and he took it well. Safe to say.
Yeah, well, I think let's talk about the squad depth a little bit because this is something that they're going to have to look at now with all the injuries. Obviously, we saw Bissek come on kind of relatively early because of the Dumfries injury. Fratesi, the lost man, we saw him come on as well. Yeah. And then towards the end, the usual suspects, Correa, Taremi, Aslani, just to kind of, for their appearance bonus or something, I don't know. But, Adam, there is something that's going to have to... Inzaghi is going to have to rotate here more. He's going to have to trust more of these players, especially I think in the Coppa Italia maybe, rotate a few. I'm not sure if Milan are going to rotate. I don't know what the hell's going on there. But he's going to have to trust a few more of these players a bit more because they can't do all of these games that they've got coming up.
They can't, but also I'd say even if he wants to rotate it, I think you're still going to have, especially with the way that Inzaghi kind of sets his team out, there's going to still be a lot of those players that will have to play back-to-back. When you think about that midfield, for example, if you're only saying maybe Fratesi and Aslani right now, and we don't know where Zielinski is in the grand scheme of things in terms of his recovery, but let's just say it's those two, someone's going to have to play another game, unfortunately. So whether that be Mkhitaryan or whether that be Çalhanoğlu or Barella, there's going to be some awkward kind of management in terms of training, I think, going forward. And it's a difficult one. It is a very difficult one. I think we all alluded to the fact that depth wasn't there. I think we were expecting maybe more in the January transfer window. Hasn't happened, hasn't transitioned. But for me, it's strange that they didn't go into the loan market, try and get some players on loan just to see them through to this period, even if it was, having these loanees being available for the Champions League or one of the competitions. I think this would have been a shrewd bit of, business that they could have done and would have helped their squad right now. But as it is what it is. I can't see how they maintain all three competitions. I think they will just have to give up on one, personally.
Because it's also the age of that midfield. You've got Çalhanoğlu, who's in his 31, and then you've got Mkhitaryan, who's 52 by now, 36, right? Same age as me, Christ. You got Barella, who's not he's 28, he's in the peak. But I'm talking about it's a general issue with Inter squad anyway, is the average age. But when you're looking at that midfield, the average age is not. You're going to be struggling to get 2-3 games a week out of them. So I think Inzaghi needs to be looking at that. But overall, just a really professional performance. Got the result, left, no problems, we're done. Another slight issue, Bastoni getting sent off, that is him suspended for the next game, which I'm sure doesn't help. But I think overall, and I did see Inzaghi must have been thinking, this is why I take players off on yellow cards. This is why I do it, because it stops shit like this happening. But yeah, overall, a fantastic win for Inter, and it does seem like one team does actually want to win the Scudetto. We were worried for a bit, but one team is actually trying to make a charge for it, and they've timed it perfectly. I think we're going to leave that game there for now. Anything else to talk about with that game? I think that was done.
That's it.
Atalanta, I've still got money on you, so I'm ready for the remontada if it's going to happen. I am completely prepared for it. Let's go to the next game. Andrea, it is your time. La Viola 3, Juve 0. Goshen's kicking the scoring off nice and early before Mandragora and Goodmanson add in the third. Now, we're going to talk about Juve later because it's just the Man United chat, but based in Italy. But, Andrea, let's talk about Fiorentina. They've really been on a slump. Obviously, beat Panathinaikos midweek. How surprised were you by this result? What were your expectations going into this game?
think I was still a bit cautious because, it was a big win Thursday, but it just felt like in Serie A, it's been quite flat. And, it was one of those games where in the table, we don't look like we're challenging for anything, really. But that win kind of revives it. So I was kind of going in there with like a draw mentality, but completely different. I forgot we're playing Juventus. But it was, yeah, it was just a great performance. And I think in the end, unsurprising, really. I thought just not because of us, but because how we'll go on to how bad Juventus were, had been. So, but yeah, it was a confident display for sure. And I think for the first time we saw in a while, we're actually seeing a team now starting to really play for the manager. Let's hope this lasts more than 2 games, but right now we're seeing that, so that's good, I guess, as well.
And in that kind of new look midfield, I feel like I've not seen this midfield really that often. But between Fagioli, Cataldi, and Mandragora, obviously Fagioli getting all the headlines against his old team, right? Like how big a difference has he made since he's come into the team?
Unbelievable. He's literally what we've missed, I think, and we're starting to see now how good a player he is. It's quite funny because it's like we've sent them so many players that turn crap, and they've sent us ones that they think are crap are actual gems. So you'll have to see it. But he's just commanding. He dictates the game. 2 assists as well, actually, both assists against for the goals as well. And he's just creative, and and I think what sums him up from a lot of players that are similar positions, that he always looks to pass forward. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but it really does make a difference when it just gives you that dominating kind of look of like, right, we're not going backwards. We're going to be, pressuring you. As soon as I get the ball, I'm going to find that key pass. So, and I think both goals, Mandragora and Gudmundsson summarised that up. It seemed like a simple ball, but it was so clever. It was between the lines, cuts out Juventus' midfield completely, and both were great finishes, great goals in the end. So yeah, just he's made a massive difference. And I think in the end, having 2 midfielders next to him, I think elevates his game even more, that he can have that freedom to kind of roam and have like Mandragora and Cataldi kind of fill in his spots when he does go a bit forward or a bit adventurous as well. So it's great to see, but he's just exactly a player that we were missing. Yeah, and he's also good at breaking up play as well, that we kind of missed from Amrabat as well. So I think he's kind of filling 2 kind of shoes at the moment, which is great.
And of course, the back line, we had Pablo Mari and Pongracic back in. Is there a bit of a partnership kind of budding there? Like, is there a bit of, no, not looking good? Is it just Juventus are terrible?
Juventus are terrible.
Right, okay.
Pongracic, to be fair, I've been quite impressed with the way he glides out with the ball, like the kind of ball playing centre back kind of. He has done that well, but I'm still feel like he's a liability. I'm just looking at him the whole game, going, "Where's the mistake coming?" Rather than being like, "Yeah, he's good." And I think that's why I still worry. Pablo Mari is even worse, I think. But yeah, I
he's terrible.
still think
He's terrible.
liabilities.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
Can't trust him. He gives me PTSD every time I see him. But Adam, before we move on from Juve, this is a huge, huge win, or move on to Juve. This is a huge win for Palladino. Obviously, a very, very good week for him. But this now has to be something where Fiorentina keep pushing now and make sure that they keep this momentum for this European push, right? Because I'm convinced this team can beat Chelsea in the final. I'm absolutely convinced they can. Like, they have to make sure this momentum continues, right?
Yeah, I think on the day they can certainly do that. I think they've still got a tough semi-final though with Real Betis. I don't think that's going to be straightforward, to be fair. So one step at a time.
Not with Anthony.
Well, exactly. But I think the worry would be is that the teams in around them are applying the pressure, and I think this is a problem that we've got. Fiorentina is the inconsistency with their form. They can have a brilliant game like they have against Juventus, where they take the chances, score the goal, and it looks like everything's roses. And then come to a game like Calgary or Lecce, they suddenly pull it out of the bag and lose, for example. So I think that's the key here, is that whilst we're talking about how well they played here, it's all about following it up, as you allude to. And given the form of Roma, this is the problem that they've got to contend with, is that they're fighting and competing with some teams that are building momentum. They're building a great unbeaten run. Milan, as much as we've been quite disparaging about their form, somehow they're still hanging on. And Lazio obviously maybe giving that kind of crumb of comfort to the likes of Fiorentina and Roma by giving them a fighting chance to get into those European spots. So, yeah, this is definitely something that Palladino now has to grab, given the criticism that he's been having it of late. He's managed to pull it around for the last 2 games. Now he's got to continue it on. He's got the squad, it's fair to say. Goodmanson seems to be scoring the goals at the right time. And I felt even Moise Kean, he had something to prove in this game. He was definitely determined to try and get a goal, and he was unlucky with one of them being ruled out. So again, I think when you've got the players like that who are quite hungry at the moment, that's probably a good sign for Fiorentina. So they just need to build on that now going forward. And look, they didn't have a lot of the possession in this game. They pretty much let Juventus dictate that, but what they did was they were good on the counter-attack. They took the chances, and that's what they've got to do. It seems like a formula that works for them, so let's see more of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What I like about Kane is even when he doesn't get goals, he keeps defenders busy, and it's such a underrated thing. Like defenders have to think about where he's going, what his movement is. He keeps them occupied. He doesn't just completely disappear in games. So I think even though he didn't get the goal here, I think he's just so key to how this team play. Yeah. It was 2 fantastic finishes from Goodmanson and Mandragora. I don't want to take anything away from the goals, but I'm going to take something away from the goals. Why do I feel like Di Gregorio could do better with both of them? I feel like he does that thing that, and maybe it's an optical illusion, I don't know, but you see a goalkeeper go down and it feels like they pull their hand away from the ball, or they're kind of like trying to scoop it, or I don't know, his movement just didn't look like he was at full stretch for them. I felt like, especially the good, maybe I'm just, but I felt especially the Goodmanson one, I was like, if you just get a straight or stretch out a little bit further, I think you get that. I don't know, it just seemed like maybe he could have done a bit better, but Di Gregorio was not the issue. It was his defenders leaving the Fiorentina players to just have shots from all over the pitch. That was mainly the issue, I would say. Adam, I'm going to go back to you. As we are recording, which is 10:15 on Monday evening, Central European time, Motta is still in a job. Giuntoli has released or kind of said publicly that he expects him to continue in the job. Personally, I'm looking forward to meeting the Juve fans I teach this week and getting their take on how the hell they feel about this. But this is beyond untenable now. Like, these are 2, historically bad results for Juve back to back. Like, obviously last week was the 4-0 against Atalanta. Now, I don't think it's often they lose 3-0 to Fiorentina. No. Like, it is beyond untenable, this position now.
It is, especially in the manner of those defeats. They didn't really lay a glove on either side, it's fair to say. When I'm thinking back to the Atalanta game and this particular game with Fiorentina, I think Fiorentina could have carried on playing for another 90 minutes and they wouldn't have conceded a goal. So I think this is the real issue, is that whilst Juventus have kind of identified that they're going to play a possession style of football, they're not really doing anything with it. That's the issue. And whilst we've said this is probably not Motta's squad in terms of personnel, they should be doing a lot better. And I think a prime example is Fagioli, the fact that he forced him essentially to get out of the club because they needed to raise funds, but you didn't see him as part of long-term plans. And he's actually performing for Fiorentina, your rivals, and putting in a performance against you. But
it doesn't look great, does it?
It doesn't look great on you. It doesn't look great. And I think that's ultimately the issue. But also, I think the only problem that Juventus have is whilst they could get rid of Motta, I'm not even convinced that Mancini would pick it. Because I think you're going into a club where not necessarily everything's there. You're going to be back to square one. I think he'll get better results. There's no doubt about it. But how long will it be until he moans about not having the funds or not having the budget to, spend on certain players, and he kicks off? And he did a lot of that when he had that spell at Inter, for example, where if things didn't go his way, he'd moan about it and he'd make it quite public as well. And it's not a good look. And does Juventus, given the state of the board as well, that they're kind of considered as people that are yes men and they don't really care about football, this is an awkward position for the likes of Giuntoli as well, because he's protecting his own job at the same time. So I think he's going to see this through as a project, but the question mark is, will there be enough pressure from a board level to make that change? I'm not too sure about that. And I also just question who they bring in personally. I gave a candidate in Igor Tudor. Would he be someone that would appease the Juventus fan base at the same time? I know there is still that clan of fans that want Allegri back in the fold, but I don't think Allegri's going to entertain it.
Yeah, I think it is. You make a fair point. I think it's getting to the point of appearing like a poison chalice, like United last summer when they were offering the job to everyone in Europe, and everyone was like, "No, I'm okay, thank you."
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's starting to appear like that. But obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Motta, right? There's a horrendous amount of pressure on Motta. But Andrea, should the pressure really be on Giuntoli, and should the calls really be for Giuntoli? Because I know. Look, Motta has to adapt how they're playing. He has to figure out how they can just get results and stop conceding and whatever it is. But he has been absolutely strung up by this squad. I think I've got nothing personally against frigging Lloyd Kelly, but he shouldn't be playing for Juve, right? You've got Weah playing right back. You've got McKennie playing every single position on the pitch because he can't, this squad is not fit to what he's trying to do. Even Vega on loan from Chelsea has just played. I think I've seen him play left back and centre back and right back. It feels like this isn't a squad he wants. They're not players he wants, but Giuntoli is just giving him these to work with, right?
Yeah, and I think again it's Timothy Weah at right back. How do Juventus not have a natural right back? I know I think Savon is injured, but again, you can't go in with one right back. There's so many questions, but again, yes, for me, it goes down to Giuntoli in the transfers that it's being shambolic, and it's not even the poor players he signed like Kelly who are nowhere near to the standard. It's also the players he did sign for the fees. Koopmeiners is 60 million. Douglas Luiz is like 45 million. Like this is like we're talking like Man United territory, like when they've overpaid for Mount and stuff. So that's where you're like, you brought these players for big money. You're not going to get anywhere near that if you try to sell them, and they're going to be on big wage for a long contract. So financially, on the bigger side, I mean, right now it won't be too bad, but it's setting up for a difficult financial situation perhaps in the coming years if they keep if they keep approaching this transfer window in this manner. So absolutely, his line of call has to be judged as well because it's literally setting him up for failure, but also could potentially set up Juventus for more financial implications when they've tried to get out of it previously. So, yes, it's definitely something that has to be looked at. But for me personally, Lloyd Kelly, that's a sackable offence. And I feel bad for Lloyd Kelly because I feel like he gets thrown under the bus a lot in this. But it's Lloyd Kelly.
Yeah.
It should be sackable just for that.
I hope he does. I would love to have you on the show, Lloyd, and discuss your career. I don't want to be, but we all. He wasn't getting a game for Newcastle. He wasn't getting a game for Bournemouth. Come on. When his agent picked up the phone, he must have been like, I do not believe this. What is going on? So I think, it's just obviously an absolute shit show there. But I don't want to get down the same Juve rat hole that we always end up down. But, we will continue to see just how bad this goes. The fact that people were trying to crowbar them into a title race will never not be funny to me, I'll be honest. But they'll be lucky to get Europe if they continue this way. And I mean any form of Europe. But let's leave this game there for now. Incredible win for Fiorentina. Into semi-finals of the Conference League. Everything's looking good, Andrea. It's all looking good. But we're going to move on to the next game, and we're going to discuss the biggest upset of the weekend. I'm calling it. I'm putting my neck on the line. Andrea, Bologna 5, Lazio 0. Which was your favourite goal? Mine was obviously Orsolini's because it was Orsolini. But which is your favourite goal?
I would have said Orsolini as well, to be honest. Don't want to copy, but
it's unbelievable.
Again, it makes me more frustrated at the same time because it's just like, what a great footballer, and he's not in the national squad. I don't understand. I know we'll come on to that. Sorry, I didn't want to say it now,
No. We'll do it now. Honestly,
honestly, it is absolutely frustrating, and he's such a great player. And how many goals he scored like that this season? Previously, he's just an incredible player. I just don't understand, but yeah, I think so. It was bittersweet. It was like I enjoyed it, but I also hated it because it's like he's still proving that he should be there.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, we on this pod, we have been beating the drum for Orsolini for years because he's an unbelievable player. And I hate just talking about selling players from other teams, but I'm still waiting for someone to make a bid for Orsolini. I'm not sure why nobody has. He's having an unbelievable season again. Obviously, he's a player who struggles with injuries, but every time he comes in, he seems to score that same one, cut it on the inside, far post.
Yeah.
This goal, a lovely little dink over the top. But Adam, what I really liked from this as well is Bologna goals from all over the park, all over the field here, goals everywhere. We've kind of stuck the boot in a fair few times with old Vicenzo about how he coaches attacks and how he gets things out of strikers. But maybe what he should have been doing is just trying to spread the goals around, because Bologna seem really good at doing that this year.
They're very good at that. I think also what you would, I personally felt that the third goal, or I think it was the last goal, Fabian, I thought that was a fantastic team goal. You know, just the directness, just the ball into the box and Fabian headering it into the roof of the net. I think that really typified what Vicenzo Italiano has installed into this squad. As you're right to allude to, obviously, I think he's got the better foundations going on. I think, funnily enough, he's actually achieved the same points tally that Thiago Motta achieved at the same point as manager of this Bologna side. So I think he's actually at a point where he's overachieving now with this Bologna squad, given that, you know, this squad hasn't got the likes of Xerxes in it, for example. So, yeah, I think this is really quite telling about Vicenzo Italiano. I didn't think he had it within him. I thought they would be hovering outside of it. And, you know, as I alluded to, I think they've got the potential to be potentially third place as it currently stands, because their fixture list is quite potentially, anyway, favourable for them right now. But I think it's, you know, the way that they approached it against this Lazio side, a Lazio side that was full of confidence, by the way. You know, they weren't any, you know, like a team that was without any kind of confidence and going into this without form. So they did really fascinating well. I think they shell-shocked Lazio from that first goal onwards. They really didn't know how to react, and Lazio really did struggle to contain or do anything with this Bologna squad, and that shows you how fluid that they've been playing. So a lot of credit to Italiano on the way that he's managed to get this team really on fire right now.
I think you're right to point out that last goal. The movement and the whole move of that last goal was absolutely incredible football. It was really like one touch passing, really beautiful, like in full flow. Just incredible to watch, really. And you're right. I've kind of, it surprised me. I looked at the table then and was like, oh shit, Bologna are fourth, right?
Yeah.
Like, it does feel like they've kind of emerged, not from nowhere, but that's four wins in a row now. Like, and it is like, oh crap, they are actually picking up steam. I think, obviously, we see it, or I always see it through the lens of how disappointing it was with Fiorentina last year and how kind of unhappy the fans were. Maybe we just need to kind of forget that and be like, okay, he's learnt from that and he's improving with Bologna now. I don't know. But it's really, really great to see how well they're doing. There's so many exciting players. Another assist for Ferguson as well. Great to see him back in the league. Miranda in my Fantacalcio, my guy, 2 assists from him. But yeah, spreading the goals out. We're always hoping that Bologna do well, always backing Bologna. But for Lazio, now I was looking at their results post-European games, because I was like, let's just see what the hell has led to this. And since Christmas, every time they've played a game after a European game, they've not won. They've either drawn or and they've taken some pretty heavy losses after that as well. Now, we've talked before about Lazio. They have actually a pretty deep squad. They've got quite a few options on the bench, especially in attack. But I feel like the midfield is always Guendouzi and Ravella. That's it. Like, the defense is pretty much the defense. Like, and I feel like maybe on a day like this, when you're coming up against a team, you know, exciting, attacking, direct, like high press, post-European match day, maybe this is what Lazio were kind of struggling, and as you said, they got shell-shocked. Like, Andrea, do you feel like there's just a few too many miles in these Lazio players' legs, or was it also a massive lack of commitment because a lot of those performances were not excusable?
I think it's definitely the games and the tiredness, because that was their 4th game in 10 days, I think, the space of 10 days, which doesn't help as well. And again, I think, although they do have options, I think generally this 11 is pretty much the same every week. And I can't blame the manager for doing it either, just because I don't think the backups coming in could make a difference, and we take them where they are right now. So I kind of feel for him that he's had to stick with this type of team and kind of keep it going. And I think for once in the defeat, this is probably obviously a really bad defeat in terms of the scoreline and everything, but I think it just goes to show that, the rotation's so key and when you get to this type of months, that's where you see if you've rotated enough, you've got less injuries, you've got a well-rested squad, and you can capitalize on wins and, stay in games. And I think this obviously is a big sign that they really are completely out of it. I think
Mhm.
I don't want to disrespect Bologna because they actually did play well and they deserve to win. Like I don't want to, but I just feel like that game they just looked tired. Lazio, they just didn't, and I think that obviously that tiredness obviously affects commitment. It affects lots of aspects of the game. So it was quite fortunate because if they met in a different state, it would be a close game because they're both very similar in the way they approach the game. So um, yeah, it's a lot of questions. It's just now whether he might have to look at rotating a bit more, but then it feels like it's a bit too late to do that because the
Mm.
games are coming thick and fast. They've got European football still to come, and ultimately, if they're gonna get fearful, other situations in the league as well, in the Europe as well, they really got to stick with the 11 they have. That's the only best chance they're going to do it. And we called it the whole season that they're good, but they ain't got the depth. And
Yeah.
now it's coming to light now. And I think this won't be the last we see of it as well, especially the deeper they go in Europe, which they've got a good chance to as well. So
Mm.
yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, certainly for me, it was more the fatigue side of things I thought we saw than anything else.
Yeah, and I think I really like Baroni going up and kind of saying to the fans, like, this is on me. It's not the players. This was my fault. This was my decision. Like, blame me. I think he's building a bit of a culture there with the players. You can see the players really enjoy playing for him. And like some of the performances they've pulled off this season have been incredible. I think, yeah, it just felt very uncharacteristic of what we've seen in this Lazio team all season. I was just, because as I was watching the like extended highlights and stuff, I was like, this isn't like them at all. I need to look at
No.
what has led to this, like how they're just getting caught like that high line, just not having the pace to run back, not being like, there was just so much open space. And it was ugly viewing for Il Laziali, but a huge, incredible win for Bologna. Honestly, I checked at half time, I was 3-0. I was like, bloody hell. And talking to someone later, they're like, oh no, it finished 5. I was like, bloody hell. Yeah, incredible performance there. Elsewhere, very quickly, let's run through it. I'm just going to say Venezia drew 0-0 with Napoli. My favourite thing here was that Conte blamed the fact that the pitch wasn't watered. That's
In the
one
most
of my
watered place in
favourite
the world.
Yeah. There's no water in Venice. Who knew? He that was my favourite excuse of the season so far. But Adam, do you want to take us through the other games? What happened across the Serie A weekend?
Yeah, I think there's some really outstanding kind of performances. The first one I want to allude to was the Friday night game, Genoa 2-1 winners against Lecce. Malinowski coming up back and making an appearance after that broken leg, ironically, against Venezia those many months ago. So the recovery was quite sharp, I have to say. It was quite a quick one. But yeah, he set up superbly for one of the goals. Evades me now which one it was. Moretti, I think for the second one in particular, really well taken. But from my point of view, I just want to call that out. It was great to see him.
Very quickly, I want to say the clip of Patrick Vieira knocking on the window while the players are having the interview. Absolutely love that. Instant, so much meme material with that clip. It's downloaded on my phone. And I just have to shout out the incredible job that Vieira's done since he's coming to Genoa. Been unbelievable. Really, really hope it continues. Sorry, Adam, continue.
No, cool. That's fine. Moving into Saturday's game, obviously Monza picking up a point against near kind of relegation rivals Parma, but the goal of the game for this one was Bone. He superbly puts his effort into the top corner, kind of leaning back as well when he's doing it as well. Monza taking the lead in this game through Iso. And again, I think you can take some heart from it, but Monza pretty much dead and buried, it's fair to say. But Parma giving themselves a fighting chance here, Rory. Then I want to kind of move on to the next game, which was Udinese losing at home to Hellas Verona. Nothing to say about the game in particular.
The most Udinese fucking result ever, by the way.
Yes, it was. But all I was going to say, it's nothing to really go back and watch on YouTube. All I would say is just have a look at Andre Duda's effort. Fantastic curling top corner free kick. It's from distance as well. Duda did kind of dictate the tempo. I think he almost has an opportunity to set up another one, but unfortunately the striker couldn't really convert. But that was one of the kind of things. Otherwise, I'll quickly go into Roma on the Sunday. They beat Calgary 1-0. Very tense game. Roma had a lot of the possession without doing too much, but it keeps their winning momentum at this moment in time. I think that is, if I've got it right in my notes, it's now 13 games unbeaten in the league, and they are unbeaten in 2025. So Ranieri doing great things with this squad. Ironically, scored by the man that is rumoured to be potentially sold on in the summer in Artem Dovbyk. Fantastic kind of fox in the box finish, it's fair to say. But Calgary were unlucky, Rory. Calgary, through Piccoli and Zortea, probably should have got an equaliser potentially in this match, so they'll be very grieved that they didn't get much more out of it. Otherwise, the other two kind of big games to call out here, I won't call this one a big game. Torino winning 1-0 against Empoli. Nothing to say about Vlasic apart from that effort. Empoli were terrible in this match. Goiasi in particular blasting one over the top of the crossbar. And then, Rory, the final one is Milan winning 2-1 to Como. Now, that result sounds like it was straightforward for Milan, but they faced the Everton boos at both half-time and full-time despite winning.
It's like because Ali was on the pitch. Maybe some Everton fans left over.
Maybe. But I think this was more of a performance to kind of highlight that if it wasn't for Christian Pulisic and Tijani Reinders, I think Milan are struggling in this match. Como fully deserved of at least trying to get a point out of this match. Da Cunha, again, fantastic finish. He has one that's ruled off for offside by the smallest of margins, by the way. It is literally his hand hanging over the line in that fucking stupid VAR, draw the line, and comically there's a paint job of him crossing that line. But yeah, Como, I think they will feel aggrieved because they had, plenty of effort through Nico Paz as well. Milan, further questions. Yunus Musa in particular should have scored after 3 minutes, but somehow, despite kind of going in on goal, he somehow passes it to the wide of the goal. I don't know how he's managed to do that. I think there's further questions about where his future actually lies in this Milan squad. But wider questions about Conte Sal. Will he last the season? I think based on this, I don't think he lasts the season now. I genuinely don't see what the inspiration is at the moment. And
I think there's no teams. I'm gonna say it now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it now. No Serie A team sacks a manager between now and the end of the season. I think there's going to be no more sackings. I think everyone just holds tight now and just fucking waits. Because they would have been gone by now if they were going to go, I think. I'm happy by the time this pod is
don't
released.
Fancy Davide Nicola being sacked and then be rehired a couple of days later or something like that.
By the time I'm editing this pod, I'm probably going to be wrong, but I will put my neck there. We have to say the return of Dele Alli. It was brief,
yes.
but we did kind of enjoy it, I suppose. Got sent off. I don't know. It was difficult, wasn't it? It was very disappointing to see. I was really upset.
It's a poor challenge.
It was a poor challenge, absolutely. But it just kind of feels like, I wanted this to go well for you, Dele. Don't let this, be a kind of let it ruin it all again. Obviously, Fabregas gets sent off as well, I think, at the end. So it all got a bit heated and everyone kind of lost their head. But Milan did get the win there in the end. Honestly, without Pulisic, I don't know how their season would be over without those two players. It's just, if it isn't already over, it would be over. Just incredible. But that was the Serie A weekend. I think that's all of it.
That's it.
And now we have the international break, guys. What we've all been waiting for. We have the international break. Are you excited? We're excited. We're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about said international break. And we are back. It's time for the international break. Woo! Nations League. Italy taking on Germany. It's the big one. And we're going to look at the Italy squad that Spalletti has announced and how we feel about it. I know you're all excited. Let's do it. The goalkeepers, you have Donnarumma, Meret, and Vicario from Tottenham. Defenders, Bastoni, Buongiorno, Calafiori, love him. Cambiaso, Camuzzo, Di Lorenzo, Gatti, Ruggeri, and Udogi. Midfielders, Barella, Casadei, Adam. Casadei is in the Italy squad. We're going to be coming back to that one. Fratesi, Ricci, Rovella, and Tonali. And then the forwards, Kane, Luca, Maldini, Politano. I have something to say about that. Raspadori, Retegui, and Zaccagni. Andrea, I'm going to go to you first. Your overall kind of feelings about this squad? Any disappointments? Any polite surprises?
Positives I'll say is Rovella. I think that's a great pick. I think he's deserved it for a while now. Great to see obviously Odochi back, and I think Odochi will be the starting left back. Obviously left wing back for this game. Shame obviously the marker's not there, but it gives him a chance to actually have a go for a longer period. But yeah, the biggest for me is how Politano in 1 month has played good football and he's in the squad. Yet Orsolini's been doing it for 3 years now, and is not in the squad. I still don't understand. Maldini doesn't warrant it. A good thing he's picked 3 goalkeepers, not 4. That's good.
Improvement.
We've always picked 4 for some reason. Just I don't know.
Just in case.
Just in case. Honestly, Donnarumma's is always gonna play no matter what. Yeah, I think. But it just again, I think the only frustration I have is again it's another squad selection where it feels a bit underwhelming because there's so many inconsistencies, and I think you guys obviously will have more to say, but it's just another one where it almost seems like he's picking players on form. He's also picking players that are obviously experienced in the squad, but then he's not doing it throughout. You know, he's picking players who are not picking players that are in form or in the squad before. So it's I think it's so inconsistent, and again, it's very contradictory yet again. So that's something that I hope he tries to stamp out in future selections.
Yeah, like I know for even a player like Fratesi, I know his record for Italy is really good. He does get goals for Italy, but he's barely playing for Inter. Like he's getting 10-20 minutes off the bench when Inzaghi really is desperate to play someone because he doesn't want to play him. Like it doesn't scream like let's give this guy an international call up. Although I accept his Italy record is very good. Like Adam, any players here that you were like beyond Casadei? Any players where you were like they shouldn't be in the squad?
Ruggeri. I'm baffled by that one. I am not too sure he merits being in terms of the squad. I know it's a position that it doesn't really matter, but merits. I think Andre called it last time. It would be nice to have seen Caprile has essentially just called up, just give him at least an experience. I can't really say it's that bad overall, but yeah, Casadei doesn't belong there. He's not there yet. And look, he has had a good two matches, maybe at a push, 2 matches. But again, I don't think he's quite there to the standard. I suspect he's more there as a backup more than anything. But yeah, I'm a bit surprised at Politano, like you've said. Don't really see a place for him. Probably would have argued also Zortea should be in this squad just for the balance point of view, just to have an optionality in terms of a right kind of bombing winger style. Like we've said with Orsolini, he should be in this squad. And there's probably an argument to say potentially I've forgotten his name now, but the right wing back at Atalanta. Signed from Torino. Oh, he's going to bug me, that name.
Bellanova.
Yeah, I think he, at least in the attacking third, if not defensively, he offers something different as well. So
well, absolutely. I think he leads Atalanta in assists this season as well. I think he's their lead assist maker this year. So yeah, that's a blaring error. Actually, that's a very, very good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, my main one is Politano. I know Conte loves him, but I just don't see how Orsolini isn't in that squad ahead of him. I can't see any rational reason why. But of course, Italy do have 2 pretty big games coming up. Their quarterfinals away in Germany. At home in Milan first on the Thursday, and then on Sunday they'll be heading to Germany for the quarterfinals. Andrea, how do you feel about this? Are you confident for Italy heading into this? Like Germany have started to improve a little bit under Nagelsmann. They're starting to look a bit better. How do you think Italy will get on?
I think it definitely will be a close game, but I'm not too confident. I think just because I think Germany they have so much firepower up front, and I think they've got so much pace. But I look at that squad and I just don't see, like you guys have alluded to, I don't really see any subs that can come on and make a difference, like a Sortea, like a Bellanova, like Adam said, which is another great shout, or Solini, stuff, players like that. So I feel like we've let ourselves sell short with the kind of like options. coming from the bench. But I do have a lot of faith in Moise Kean and Retegui up front. If they play together, I think they could work really well together. But my only concern is that they're playing the game in Milan. And I hate it because Donnarumma gets absolute spanking there. And it's
The
annoying
record
because
is not good in San Siro
No,
at all. It's
I don't know why
really not good.
I don't know why they're playing there. Like they're just gonna harass him the whole game. When it's the national team, it's not Milan playing. Like it's beyond the joke at this point that they're still doing this. It's literally like little kids at this point. It's terrible.
No, it happens every time. I went to the Ukraine game. I went to like all the games. He just gets dogs abused. I was like, Christ alive. Yeah, they really, really took that very, very personally. Adam, how do you see this one going? I can see, unfortunately, Germany just over the two legs being too much.
Yeah, I'm looking at this Germany squad and I'm thinking to myself, defensively, with the exception of maybe Antonio Rudiger, actually they are get-attable in that sense. I don't think they're necessarily something to worry about, especially if we've got the likes of Moise Kean and Retegui potentially giving them something to worry about. So I think it depends on the philosophy that Spalletti attempts to, apply himself for this game. I think they've got to take advantage in that first game, 100%. They've got to go and win that game because you sense that in the return leg in Germany that Germany will get a goal. But I'm also just looking at the kind of players that they've got from a midfield perspective. I'm not convinced by the kind of staples within that squad. The likes of Goretzka, the likes of Kimmich, for example. Pascal Gross hasn't had a fantastic season. The only worry would be Musiala. I think he pulls all the strings for a Germany and a Bayern Munich perspective. I think he's a really skillful player, so that'd be an interesting encounter. And then when you look from a forward line perspective, I think they've got a little bit more optionality, which gives them that unpredictability in terms of the way they're going to set out. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about it. But, they've got pace, Dennis Undav having a good season with Stuttgart and Eddie Emi on his day, because the reason I say that is we haven't seen him consistently do it for Dortmund. Look, Italy will be aware of the credentials of these players, the bigger players in particular, should I say. But I don't think they've got to be worried about it. But I just worry about maybe the way Spalletti sets this team out. That's the only thing.
Well, we will see. They're going to be two good games. I think they'll be good, interesting games. I think they're going to be like genuinely worth watching, which is what we want, right? I will try and find a bar to watch these games. I think it should be good. I didn't get a ticket to the Milan game, to the game in Milan, unfortunately. But guys, that is the Nations League that we're kind of looking forward to. That's all the international football we'll be covering here. If you care about the Three Lions and the Premier League, go and check out our Premier League episode. It should be on the feed as well. Guys, do you want to say bye before I send the listener home?
Ciao, ciao.
You can follow us on all our social medias at Anglo-Italian Pod, except on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and a review. I know you're listening on Apple Pods. Do it now. Perfect. Guys, we'll see you later. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
No, wait, that's not what I say. I say a dopo. There we go. Right. That was so messy.
Dopo.
A dopo.